Salutations, everyone. Welcome back to Total Warhammer 3. I'm Lord Forant, and today we've got a guide on Markus Wulfheart, the Hunts Marshal's Expedition. So this video is part of a larger series in Let's Play, which covers the other Empire factions, the building, the technologies, the units. So if you're not seeing what you're looking for in this video, go check those out. That being said, if you do enjoy this video, like, comment, subscribe, which encourages me and other people to do more videos and guides for this type of game. Anyway, let's jump right into it. So Markus Wulfheart is probably the most unique Empire faction. Basically, think of Markus Wulfheart as a colonial army. I imagine he's supposed to be like a fantasy world incarnation of like Cortez, or the guy who conquered the Inca Empire. Pizarro, I think. Name is escaping me. Well, you're in a similar place. You've come from Europe, and you're basically in the fantasy Warhammer Worlds version of South America, where you're fighting Skaven, vampires, and lizardmen. So Wulfheart is kind of unique in the sense that you're a untainted faction who fights one of the other major untainted factions, the lizardmen. You also fight other tainted factions, but other good factions kind of get along with each other. I say good loosely. Wulfheart does not. So Wulfheart has several unique mechanics. Let's start with his unique technologies. So if you've played Wulfheart before, this will look very similar to what you've seen for technology. The technology tree is the standard new Empire tree. I did a whole video on this, so I'm not going to go over it, but we're going to focus on hunting advances down here in the bottom right. You have the Hunter's Guild, which gives you +2 recruit ranks for all Imperial supply units. That's going to be your big source of good units for quite some time. We'll go over that in a minute. Colonial Forts, Casualty Replenishment +10, and Control +1. This is extremely good, and is actually one of the few arguments that you can make against starting with Engineers Guild, Grain Silos, or State Troop Standards. This makes a play as Wulfheart significantly easier. I think it might be the single largest casualty replenishment tech bonus in the entire game, which is amazing. You also have access to seaborne logistics, which is not as good, but if you own a lot of ports, they build faster, they're cheaper, and then if you do that, you get access to Imperial reinforcements. You get an additional detachment of reinforcements with every Imperial supply delivery. Imperial supply delivery, as I said, is how you're going to get better troops. Having additional detachments gives you much better troops earlier in the game than you would have otherwise. So how do you get those? Well, up here we have Markus Wulfheart's acclaim. He's got the Emperor's Mandate. I don't know if it was Franz who did this or the preceding emperor, but you've been told to conquer Lustria, the fantasy South America. And as you gain hunters, which is another mechanic, you build ports, you capture settlements, your claim goes up. As your claim goes up, you get access to better Imperial supplies. This one is, if you get this far, you get recruit rank +2. Here you can then build barracks and livery buildings. You cannot build them before. So if we were to look over here, we would not be able to build any of these ones with red X's. So we can't get top tier infantry, top tier artillery, well, even mid tier artillery, great cavalry, better ranged units, even anti-Skaven buildings is forbidden to us, which is kind of interesting, as well as coaching inns. You unlock more of them as you go along, which really helps you get better. Plus, you start going from normal or standard Imperial supplies to advanced to elite. This makes a huge difference. Also, once you get to the end, that's one of your win conditions for your campaign. Short victory, have at least 100 of them. That is right there. The thing is, as you go up, you lose relations with the lizardmen. Because you're invading their territory, they grow to hate you. You are going to have to kill all the lizardmen in Lustria to be safe. In fact, your campaign victory requires you to wipe out several of the major ones, including the Skaven and a couple vampiric pirates in the area. I will note the Dread Fleet is an interesting one because you may not even have to kill them. If Tyrion survives up here, he will usually wipe them out before you have to get there, but otherwise you have to go on a quest to the middle of the ocean. I really think this should be removed from his mission, but it exists. Now, underneath this is the Hostility. As you attack and defeat armies, various events, raiding, sacking, and capturing settlements, hostility will go up. The higher level of hostility, Imperial supplies will come faster, they will be better, but people will grow to hate you more and more. So if we, at the lowest one, we lose some control, normal frequency of Imperial supplies, higher, less control, faster. If you get to extremely hostile, you start to penalize the enemy. In the sense that the enemies get stronger and they tend to be extremely aggressive towards you. And it gets even worse. As you go up, they get 8 to leadership, 15 weapon strength, and finally at the end, hostility is redone. Imperial supplies are dispatched immediately, and usually a couple invading armies will come for your head. It's not the world's easiest mechanic to deal with, but it's kind of nice. You play much more defensive than other factions, so walls, garrisons, ambushes make a huge difference. So the other major mechanic for Wulfheart is he has access to Wulfheart's hunters. These are legendary lords, as you can kind of guess. We got a Bretonnian paladin, elven archer, dwarven, I think this is a dwarven engineer, and then a imperial witch hunter. Now, it tells you how to get them, fight the be at war with Vampire Coast mutineers. You can do this on like turn 4 or 5. Once you discover them, just declare war. You get an exceptional individual. This one, you have to own. You have to move down there. So the other thing is you don't have to move an army. You can move a hero. So if you've got a spare hero unit you don't need for a couple turns, run down there, trigger this. Over here, this is have at least 20 hostility. And then the last one is if you move to this area, which you will have to do to kill off the lizardmen anyway. Now, the only faction in the area that really will get along with you is the Bretonnians, Bordello Errant of Bretonnia. They might be the only faction in the area that gets along with you. I have sometimes gotten along with them. Other times they basically betrayed me, declared war, and I've had to wipe them out by turn 15. So either good ally or an enemy. Up north, interestingly enough, there's the Cathay Jade Dragon, who doesn't make a bad ally, or at least a neutral faction. He won't tend to declare war on you if you trade and non-aggression him. You just got to be aware that you can't take that land, and you have to get north of him to wipe out one of the Lizardmen factions. Thankfully, he might do it on his own for you. Now, the other thing is if we look at Wulfheart himself, of course, this is a summary. It tells you you only have basic units. Basically, you're only going to have spearmen and archers until you get more developed, but don't rely on training troops locally. If you want powerful troops, you need Imperial supplies. And once you get Imperial supply units, you don't want to lose them. So you can get really good units. You can get all the way up there to Hellstorm rocket batteries. You won't get them early on, but some notable stuff is you can get access to mortars usually on. You can get access to Reich Guard units. It's really your call what you want from Imperial supplies. You get to pick. I tend to take war machines like mortars and stuff early on and then get better infantry. Wulfheart has access to decent range units, and in fact, he makes archers and huntsmen better, so it's not as huge of a priority. If you recruit huntsman generals, they recruit 3 higher. Lizardmen hate you, so that's negative 40 plus. Up here, you could theoretically get to negative 60. The lizardmen are all gonna attack you. Don't even try to become friends with the lizardmen. It's pretty much pointless. Now, Wulfheart himself is an amazing legendary lord, but let's look at his abilities. First off, any archers or huntsman units in your armies are cheaper. Note that this does not apply to crossbowmen. So really, you're going to start with some archers, and then as soon as you get access to huntsmen, forget archers ever exist. Just build huntsmen. They're significantly stronger, significantly better, And in terms of their cost, Wulfheart makes them totally viable to carry to mid to late game. They've got about a 200 something upkeep cost, significantly 50% lower for him. And they're very good. He also has an increased ambush success chance and defense chance. You're going to be fighting Skaven at some point, assuming the lizardmen don't kill the Skaven first, and they love to ambush you. This makes it significantly harder for you to be ambushed. It also makes you much better at ambushing lizardmen armies who will appear to wipe you out as you do more aggressive actions. I found the best way to play with him is really have one elite army and do lots of ambushes, then push out afterwards. Now, in terms of his tree, Wulfheart is again rather unique. He has access to Brass Lungs and Hold the Line. Hold the Line is worth getting fairly early on for additional defense, since you don't have the world's best melee infantry units at the start. Buffing what few you do have will help significantly. You do not want to lose your elite units, so you don't really want to fight battles in which you lose units. So ambushes are the way to go. You have pretty standard red line. At some point, you're going to want to definitely level up your pistol corps here, strengthen your missile units. Really helps your huntsmen kill lizardmen units in particular. However, Empire's Finest will buff your relatively poor infantry at the beginning of the game to levels where they can hold a line long enough for your huntsmen to win the battle. However, I would do that as like your third or fourth tree. The first one, Route Marcher, Leaders of Renown. You won't have the world's best economy for some time. Wulfheart's economy, I think, is the worst of the Empire Lords. The only way you're going to get it is winning battles, sacking settlements. Thankfully, you don't need the most because you don't have to pay much to recruit troops. You just need to spend that money to upgrade your settlements. Afterwards, it's worth snagging a point in Fervent over here just so that you get 1 corruption reduction. Irrepressible is quite useful, especially on Wulfheart. If for some reason he gets wounded, which you should actively avoid, getting him back is really the only way you'll survive. If you don't have Wulfheart, you're going to be struggling to expand. Plus, it allows him to replenish his health faster, as well as he'll gain more experience. Later on, you're definitely going to want to get Logician, as well as Quartermaster. Again, cheaper upkeep is amazing, as well as replenishment. You're going to want to snag Headhunter for their movement, less upkeep, higher recruitment rank, and more recruitment capacity. All the stuff you need to survive in a very hostile territory. Now, Wulfheart has access to the Huntsman General tree. He's got focused shots, seasoned marksman, etc. Very good tree. He initially does not have access to some of their abilities. Instead, he's got his own. Later on, getting to like Executioner gives you really powerful magic missiles and is worth snagging. You can delete some enemy lords with this used properly. However, he does have his own unique tree up here. Best of the best, recruits troops 2 levels higher. Really handy. It applies to the Imperial supplies, I believe, and makes it so that you're recruiting level 7 troops by turn 30. Impervious to attack, he gets some melee defense and missile resistance. Fairly useful. He's not the world's best melee combatant, but he's not on the level of a mage either. He can hold his own. The missile resistance is a little bit more useful, especially if you run across Skaven with gun units. But the reality is he shouldn't be getting hit by missiles anyway, considering how far his range is. Master Survivalist, though, is worth getting. It's like an upgraded version of the Huntsman General one. More movement, line of sight, more replenishment. In fact, it's almost identical. It's worth snagging as soon as you get to rank like 11 or so. 10 to unlock that, 11 to get that. A regular elite, archers and huntsmen are even cheaper to maintain, and in fact, huntsmen get a boost to melee attack and both to missile strength. Again, encouraging you to use plenty of huntsmen in your armies. Once you do, they can actually fight some low to mid-level Skaven troops in melee. Sleight of hand. This is really cool. Double shot ammunition, as in your huntsmen fire 2 arrows instead of 1 for your army. Your huntsmen become absolute monsters, and he fires faster as well. Telescopic aim is really handy on him. It changes It adds 22 range to his missile attacks, allowing him to outrange everything but artillery, as well as add sundering attacks, which remove armor. Against Lizardmen Lords, this is really handy because they all have decent armor, and he can pretty much just sit back and shoot them from a distance and they will die. Now he also gives Huntsman the Grand's Hunts Marshal. It gives his army Vanguard deployment and immunity to psychology. Both are extremely powerful. You can set up your army to do ambushes, deploy from multiple angles, as well as not have to worry about routing units from either high-level Skaven units or high-level Lizardman units. Overall, Wulfheart is the key to your army, as well as your huntsman. But everybody else in your army is fairly good. Now, I will point out here on his version of a yellow line, he does have this Hunter's Snare, which is quite nice. It allows you to freeze an enemy in place. I tended to use this to freeze enemy lords, hit them with Executioner in range, and some of them died without even getting to my army. Now, Hunter's Trap is a replacement. Basically, it hexes all the enemies in an area, so if you've got people charging at you or flanking, they're frozen in place. It's very handy. His quests can be upgraded as well. Gets bow, magical attacks, everything you could want from a ranged hero. Now, we have one last thing to talk about before the starting location, and that is again in Wulfhart's Hunters. They have multiple levels. You will have a series of quests to upgrade them. Get unique weapons, abilities is really nice, and I do recommend you focus on it. Obviously, I can't show it to you because I don't have them unlocked at this stage of the game. And later on, it still doesn't really help. But the cool thing is you can get a unique weapon for Wulfheart, or you can give it back to, say, this guy to get a different boost. So make sure that you pay close attention when you complete the rewards, because you'll have a choice. Some are better than others. I'm not going to go through the, what would it be, 5 times 4, 20 choices or more. That would be somebody else who's got a lot more time to do a video. Chance. Now, let's talk about his starting location. So we've kind of mentioned he's on Lustria and he has some issues with the Bretonnians. To the north is Cathay. If you can, at least non-aggression, trade with them can help. The problem is, to some degree, is Skaven in this land. Yes, the Lizardmen are a huge threat, but any province that is ruins could have Skaven in it. Now, thankfully, you can usually tell when they're Skaven because Skaven corruption will appear and it'll tick up. If you own a province in the area, you can actually check the corruption. Even if it's not building up, you can still see if the Skaven are spreading corruption, which can tell you which settlements they're in. I think the creators of the game should remove that, but they haven't. So at the start, Marcus, you're going to win this battle, take this settlement. If you can, I'd recommend fighting the first battle or two yourself, just to get used to his mechanics and using range over infantry if you're not an expert with the Empire. The other reason is if you fight the battles through auto-resolve, it is possible, not guaranteed, but at higher levels, it will definitely happen. You may lose 1 or 2 units. Because your units are bad at the beginning, until you start getting Imperial supplies, you're going to struggle to replenish those. So losing something like your halberdiers, your war wagons, or even your huntsmen is really going to set you back. You don't want to lose it. So a strategy you could try, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because I've tended to fight the battles, win this, recruit more units, then take these 2 settlements. You want to make sure you hurry and get this settlement because this is your capital. Oddly enough, you start with a minor capital, a minor settlement as your capital, and it's terrible. It has no unique buildings, no unique defenses. It's right on the coast. It will probably be taken by an enemy, either the Bretonnians or the Lizardmen at some point. If you take Spectazuma up here and you've allied or at least neutralized Cathay, this will become your new capital and is the point at which you do not wish to lose a settlement. You might lose your southern ones at higher difficulties, but your top ones, you can hold on. I would definitely not auto-construct buildings on this faction because the game struggles a little bit with the limited building trees I found. You might not have that issue. So once you've taken these, there will be some land over here. And if you haven't annoyed the lizardmen too much, it may be worth going on a quest to wipe out the dark elves that exist over here. They're not particularly aggressive to you, and at some point Cathay probably will deal with them, but they're a quick way to grab another province or two, and your starting army with some more troops and maybe imperial supplies, and if you get lucky with one or two of the hunters, can definitely smash the dark elf armies. And then you got a mountain range between you and the lizardmen, which can help with building up. At which point, either Bretonnia will have attacked you, or the lizardmen will be attacking you. So you have to think about where you want to go. There are a couple choke points as you expand south here. It's a little hard to show. There's basically a wood elf settlement down here that the lizardmen can occupy and use well, but for you it's not good territory. You want to try and pick up the settlements like right here and over here that are kind of at crossroads, and then fortify and don't lose them. Now, one of your missions is to kill the vampires over here, the vampiric pirates. I found them not to be the biggest threat for the early game. I found them more of a mid-game threat. They're pretty easy to smash. If you've got free time, you can run over and take them out. But they struggle to get past the lizardmen. So I wouldn't worry about them too much early on. Just be aware they're there. Now, up north, there is an empire settlement up here, the New World colonies. The reality is they're gonna die, and for some reason, they don't like their fellow empire settlements. It's kind of strange. I mean, you do have non-aggression pact with them, but you don't have trade, and they're gonna die probably fairly quickly. You have a greenskin faction up here, the Blue Vipers. Previously to the addition of the Cathay faction, the goal was to expand up and take them out. The reality is you don't need to do that anymore. They'll either kill Cathay, at which you do have to go north, at which point you do have to go north, but a lot of times they lose to Cathay, at which point you can kind of forget they ever existed. Leave Cathay to hold the north as you fight your way south. To win, you don't have to destroy them. However, you do have to destroy Hexawatl up here. Given long enough, Marathi tends to kill them. Or they kill Marathi. I mean, it's one or the other, right? Or Cathay kills them. So the reality is this faction doesn't tend to be a problem to eliminate, nor does the Dredge Fleet. The bigger problem for you is going to be Itza. They are absurdly strong, easily the strongest lizardman faction. Their bonuses are ridiculous. And they tend to be the central threat in the area, unless they die to Clan Pestilence, at which point the Skaven become the problem. The Awaken, of course, being the vampiric pirates, not a huge threat. Now, you have to get 30 settlements. There are 30 all the way down here, but it's not as easy to pick up 30 as you would imagine. So any settlement that you can even rush forward, sack, and then occupy and sell to another faction. I made quite a bit of money selling it to the Jade Court, assuming they didn't die. Can really help fund your expeditions. To win a long campaign victory, you basically have to control all of Lustria, either through you or your allies. The reality is the only allies you could have are the Bretonnians or Cathay, and the reality is Cathay is likely to be the ones that's your friend. Once you get past the initial area, though, you really have to start thinking about fighting lizardmen. Lizardmen are amazingly powerful melee combatants, and they have dinosaurs, basically. Spearmen with shields or halberdiers are the way to go. A unit with a halberd can easily kill dinosaur units and stop the charges. The charge defense is a necessity, as well as the improved heavy weapons. Expert charge defense will totally be needed. Clergy of Sigmar deserves a special mention because there's a lot of Skaven corruption in Lustria. And anyway, that is Markus Wulfheart. I don't believe I've missed any of the unique mechanics for him. You're going to enjoy getting troops through the Imperial supplies. You'll just wish it's more often. This builds up and resets, so you'll have cycles of expansion and contraction. So just be aware of sometimes you're going to be really strong, and then if you lose units, you'll get weaker, and so you get more Imperial troops. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If it helped you, like, comment, subscribe, check out the other videos in the playlist and series, and I hope to see you all in another Let's Play or video. Bye for now.